It is Roll Tide once again in the SEC championship. This is Alabama's 8th SEC title in 15 seasons under Nick Saban. 41-24 is the final. Consider Georgia was allowing less than 7 points per game this season. They allowed a combined 30 points the entire month of November. Here on the first Saturday in December, they give up 41 to the reigning national champion Crimson Tide. Bryce Young locking up the Heisman with 461 total yards and 4 total touchdowns. His 421 yards passing sets an SEC championship game record as Alabama pulls off the upset. And you're thinking, hold on a second, how does Alabama pull off the upset? Alabama was the underdog. It snapped a 92-game streak where Alabama was the favorite. Georgia, first loss of the season at the hands of the Crimson Tide. Nick Saban defeating his assistant, Kirby Smart, for a 4th straight time. Let's get back out to Atlanta where we find Gary Danielson, who called this game for CBS. Gary, you saw what Bryce Young did last week against Auburn, engineering the comeback. You saw what he did this week as he picks apart this Georgia defense. What did we just witness?
Well, I guess we found out why Bryce Young was so highly coveted as a quarterback, a 5-star quarterback. And just a lot of credit goes to an Alabama team that, they were embarrassed last week. Auburn took it to them. They out-muscled them. They out-physicaled them. They put a lot of pressure on. I don't even know how many days Bryce Young was able to get out of the ice tub because he took a beating last week. But that last drive, I think, meant the world to the Alabama football team, that they had a guy that could take that punishment and still be there, and that offensive line for Alabama, and then the rest of the team just followed suit. They were the better team by far today.
What happened to the Georgia defense in this game?
Well, part of what Georgia did this year is they just overpowered everybody else. The level of play from some of the teams just didn't match up. I think finally in this game they met a team that matched up physically up front, and then had a quarterback that's a lot different than who they played against all year. They were able to control the game with pass rush. They weren't able to do that. As Kirby said to Jamie at halftime, you either get him or he's going to get you. So that was kind of the story of the game, and that's kind of what we've been seeing in college football. If you've got an elite quarterback, you can have, the other team can be really good at a lot of positions, but the best quarterback usually wins in these games.
Yeah, Bryce Young now the odds-on favorite, a heavy favorite to win the Heisman Trophy as Alabama goes for back-to-back Heisman trophies. Look, we don't have to speculate. It's a lock. He locked it up. Alabama is in the college football playoff with this victory. Now Georgia and Alabama could meet again. What is the takeaway for Georgia in this game as they may get another crack at the Tide in the playoff?
Yeah, I think they look at this game and say, we made a lot of mistakes ourselves. We just thought that we could overpower these guys. We watched the game tapes from a week ago. We thought we would, get 5, 6, 7 sacks in the game. And when it didn't happen, they kind of looked shocked out there on defense. So, these two receivers, when Mechie's healthy and Jamison Williams, and that quarterback and the plays he makes, they're going to score points on everyone. You knew they were going to get to at least 35, 40 points, and they did. Just Georgia could not match it in this game.
Alabama beats Georgia for a 7th straight time. In Atlanta, another SEC championship game victory for Nick Saban and the Tide. It is Roll Tide indeed. Gary, we will look forward to seeing you next week. Army, Navy, appreciate the breakdown all season long here on CBS Sports HQ.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Great stuff as always from Gary, always providing some great perspective for us here on HQ. Nick Saban got earlier this season for the first time against a former assistant, losing to Jimbo Fisher. But he didn't get got against Kirby Smart. He's now 4-0 against him as he defeats him in the SEC championship game once again. Post-game, our Jamie Erdahl talking with Nick Saban and Bryce Young.
You just put 41 points up on a team that was only allowing 7 a game. Did your team just play the perfect game?
Well, we did play great on offense, and obviously Bryce played a magnificent game. Receivers did a good job. I think our O-line did a really good job of blocking pressures, so he had a chance to operate, which we thought was really important in the game. But this is a great team win. I mean, I know our defense gave up some plays, but they got them stopped when they needed to. Winning the SEC is a big thing, and I'm so proud of all the fans that we have here, the state of Alabama, and all of our players for how they played and competed in this game. I mean, everybody wanted to gain a little respect, and I think maybe we did.
You touched on him once, but I want to circle back to the offensive line. What did you do this week to get them shored up after such a challenging game in the Iron Bowl?
Well, I think the coaches did a really good job. We did a good job with protections. Bryce did a good job of preparing to get him in the right place. So it was everybody contributed in a very positive way, I promise you.
I'll let you go celebrate, and I'm going to talk to this young man right here, and I'll let you guys hug it out. Bryce, you played last week a half without Jamison Williams. You play this game, second half, without John Mechie. What does that say about your offense?
Yeah, it's just that mentality of the next man up. Unfortunately, Mech went down, and we had guys that were ready. You know, guys that didn't flinch in a big moment, and guys that stepped up. So I'm blessed to have the teammates around me that I do.
Last year, Alabama wins this game, and you sat and you watched Mac Jones do it. What does it mean to you that you just did the same thing he did?
It means everything. You know, for us, we have tremendous amount of respect for all the teams that pass. For me, be able to witness it's a lot. But for us, we gotta blaze our own path. We have to accomplish things for ourselves. So I'm super happy for this team. I'm all glory to God. I'm completely blessed to be in the success I am, and I'm just happy for this win.
Last week, I saw you go over and check in with the offensive line a lot. These meetings today were a little different with them. What were you telling them today?
I mean, the offensive line did a tremendous job, and obviously against a really, really good front, they took the challenge, they stepped up, they played lights out all night, and for me, that's something that maybe you don't see every down, but that's what makes an offense successful is the O-line and them up front. So I'm super happy to have them up front, and they played tremendously.
You're an SEC champion. Congratulations.
Appreciate you.
Bryce Young just locked up the Heisman Trophy.
Yes, he did.
An Alabama quarterback has never won the Heisman Trophy. Interestingly,
Think about that.
the Tide has only won 3 Heisman trophies in program history. Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, last season Devontae Smith, and Bryce Young is about to be the 4th. He sets an SEC championship game record with 421 passing yards, 461 total yards, 4 total touchdowns. What an incredible game from Bryce Young. The young man played a heck of a game last week in the Iron Bowl, and then he saves his best for last in terms of the SEC championship because they're not done yet. But what a statement Bryce Young and the Alabama offensive line made against this Georgia defense that was absolutely impenetrable all season, and they break through and win the SEC title. All right, back here with 2-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden. What the hell happened in Atlanta to Georgia?
A beatdown.
Yeah.
A beatdown.
Of epic proportions.
Unexpectedly, we saw Bryce Young provide the best game of his season against the most dominant defensive team in college football. He went out and he performed, he had a flawless performance. From start to finish, the first half, he jumped on the scene, just the accuracy, just being able to execute, extremely cool and comfortable. His pass catchers creating separation. He was able to hit them in stride. And then in totality, 4 total touchdowns, over 400 yards of total offense. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Hakeem. If you had any concerns or questions about who should win the Heisman, Bryce Young answered all of those questions in tonight's performance.
Put this into context for us, because I'm still trying to figure this out, okay? Georgia allowed less than 7 points per game this season. They allowed a total of 30 points in the month of November. They allowed 41 today to Alabama. Alabama didn't look all that great until the 4th quarter last week against Auburn. Bryce Young was sacked 7 times. Auburn's defense isn't as good as Georgia's defense. This is one of the best defenses in college football history.
So many pros, they're on Georgia's defense on all 3 levels. And that's why I felt like Georgia would have an opportunity to exploit some matchups in their favor because of how bad Bama's offensive line unit played last week in the Iron Bowl against Auburn, but they didn't surrender one sack. And I can tell you this much. Jamison Williams is a guy you cannot allow to have one-on-one opportunities. He is the fastest player in college football, especially when he has the football in his hands. And when he's rolling and Bryce Young is rolling and John Mechie III is rolling, this offense can do numbers against any opposing defense that they're going against. And one thing that Hakeem hit on that is was very important for me in watching this game today, seeing how they had to kind of change their personality last week, coming from behind against Auburn, the up-tempo attack. That was something that they got going early in this ball game, and it kind of kept the Georgia's defense on their heels, not being able to substitute, not being able to have fresh guys in the lineup and being able to understand and see what they're getting pre-snap-wise. It kind of kept Georgia thinking a lot. And because of that, they seem to be one step behind Alabama's offense the entire ball game. So hats off to Nick Saban, Bill O'Brien. Offensively, the staff came up with a big-time game plan. They were able to stay within that game plan for 4 quarters, and Kirby Smart didn't have an answer. Defensively, Georgia defense didn't have an answer for Bryce Young and what Alabama was presenting to them on the offensive end.
I think something that perhaps may get overlooked is how good Alabama's offensive line was today against Georgia's front. A Georgia front that has guys that are going to be playing in the NFL. And credit to offensive line for Alabama. They're going to have guys in the NFL as well. We know that.
Yeah.
But to do what they did, to be able to give Bryce Young time, and the one thing that you talked about as you watched the game, they didn't run the football a whole lot. They didn't try to take a ton of time off the clock late in the game. We thought that might allow Georgia to come back.
Yeah.
But it was the continued excellence of Bryce Young throwing the football in tight spaces to continue to pick up first downs. And then obviously Stetson Bennett didn't play perfect football.
Yeah.
Good game, but not good enough to beat Alabama.
He needed to be perfect, but it put more pressure on him because their defense couldn't get any stops. I mean, Alabama in totality had a real good game in 4 quarters, but you look at third down opportunities, they were 7 of 14. That's nice efficiency on third down opportunities against the best defense in college football. So that put more pressure on Georgia's offense. Because think about this. This was the first time Georgia got behind in a ball game, not saying 2 points, 3 points, where they really got behind and they needed to kind of change the dynamics of their game plan. Throughout the year, they start fast. A big-time team in the first quarter, especially the first half, starting fast and just being able to play Georgia football. Stout football on the defensive end and running the football. But because they got behind so big against Bama, they had to change their personality on both sides of the football. Now they got to find a way to correct some of their wrongs because now teams won't be afraid of Georgia's defense. I would think some of the teams they played against, they respected them and they were afraid of them. Alabama's offense respected what Georgia's defense has been able to do, but they were not afraid of them, and because of that, they kept their foot on the gas and put the ball in Bryce Young's hand, and today he was the best player on the football field.
Look, 84% of the money was on Georgia on the spread, laying 6.5. I mean,
I'm part of that percentage.
Me too. I'm floored at how wrong that everyone was. Like, we had 2 guys, Chip Patterson and Danny Cannell, that were on Alabama. We had Josh Pate on the over. Like, this is incredible to see the fact that we broke this game down from every which way. And Alabama, with the mystique in Atlanta, and it wasn't out of the question that Alabama would come and, have an upset party in Atlanta where they reign supreme.
Yeah.
But to do this, 41-24?
I'm surprised. And the thing about when you look at games and you give your expertise about what will happen, giving your prediction, gambling-wise, reality-wise, you can only add and talk about what you think will happen based on what you saw in previous games, right? So we saw a few blemishes from Alabama's team, offensively and defensively, throughout the season that you kind of pinpoint and say, this might surface again or this might not surface again. But the last time we saw Bama was against Auburn a week ago, and their offensive line could not protect Bryce Young. So one would think you might see some of the same concerns that you saw last week surfaced in the SEC championship game. But one thing you have to factor in when you're trying to give you these predictions is the man in charge. Most teams have head coaches that you respect, but they're not considered the GOAT. And there lies the disrespect when it comes to not giving Bama their just due. They have the GOAT on their sideline in college football in Nick Saban. one of the more dialed-in coaches we've ever seen. And what they did was go back to the drawing board, what went wrong against Auburn offensively and defensively, and we will not have that surface again. And it didn't. Kirby Smart is a good coach, not on Nick Saban's level.
Nope.
At all.
Not yet.
At all. So when you factor in the difference in the head coach and the head coaches, and then you factor in the difference, the large gap of separation at the quarterback position, regardless of what happened in past ball games, in this type of moment, the atmosphere, you got to take St. Nick.
I believe you.